Of all the things we talk about in reversing diabetes, of all the tools, of all of the things that can impact and influence blood sugars and our ability to have sustainable change, one of the biggest is that plate. That's right, the plate that is sitting right in front of you, the plate that's in the cupboard, the one that we pull out, the one that we put the food on. Mastering that plate has a significant impact on our health and on our ability to reverse and maintain our diabetes. Hey, if you're new to me, I'm Dr. Dwain Woode. That's Wood with an E. The E stands for endocrinology. That's what right here on the channel. I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health and your life, avoid complications, and go to the next level. And in this year, new year, new you, I'm talking to adults with type 2 diabetes who want to put their diabetes in remission, who want to get off of diabetes medications, who want to reverse their diabetes. Hey, that's right. That's what we're working on. And we've been using the amazing New Year, New You process. And we're going to talk more about that tonight and how mastering that plate can affect our diabetes. If you're new, go ahead and put new in the comments because I'd love to welcome you with a hand clap and some music. And let you know that I am so glad that you're here. If you are new as well, go ahead and put a Q in front of any question that you may have as we get into the evening, because we will be happy to get to those and be happy to answer them for you. Just some shout outs. I do see Teresa is out there. Hey, Teresa, how are you? She said, evening, doctor, and everyone. Thank you for stopping by. And in fact, let me see if, let's see what's going on over here on, I think on Instagram. Give me just a sec. Oh, here we are. See if we can get those folks on. But we should be streaming right now to all of our social media platforms. If you are out there and you don't see a friend of yours who you invited or someone that should be on, let them know that we are here and that we are going. And send them the link. Let them know to come on over and come hang out with us, because we are very excited to have all of our community members hanging out with us. It has been an amazing weekend. Hope you had a great day. Hope you had a great Monday. Hope you had a great weekend over the last several days and are back in the saddle and ready to go, because I'm excited. And welcome to everyone. So let's hop into it. By the way, if you are right now in the middle of a fast, coming out of the fast, or have gone into a fast, go ahead and put yes in the comment. So we're talking about fasting. All right. So New Year, New You. The New Year, New You process says that there are things that we can put in place that will help us in the process of reversing our diabetes. Remember, that is the plan. That is the goal this year, New Year, New You, is to reverse diabetes. And in fact, I've spent today talking to several people and have had people call me to say, hey, what do I need to do if I want to improve my health? What do I need to do to reverse my diabetes? What do I need to do to get off of some of this medication? And that is what we're talking about here on the channel. As we move through the year, that has been our thrust. That has been our mantra, right? Reversing diabetes, New Year, New You. And we've gone through and we've had several processes that we've talked about. We've had several shows. In fact, I think we're up to, show maybe 29 or something on our Monday live, right? Dwain Woode MD live. And then on our fasting and our check-ins, we've had over 70 shows that we've done since the month of January, since the new year started. And of all the things we talk about, the last several weeks we've talked about calories and exercise and the value of being in the kitchen versus exercising, which one plays a big part. And I want to tell you that of the things that we do, of all the tools that we learn, one of the ones that has a significant impact is our diet. In fact, last Wednesday, I was talking to a group, and I was telling them that someone was asking the question about exercise or having me to talk about exercise. And I said to them as a group, and I'll say it to you, the biggest bang for your buck comes from changing the diet. Now, there's nothing wrong with exercising. Exercising is great. I encourage exercising. You should exercise as much as you can, as much as your body will allow you, and as much as you are able to do without injuring yourself. Exercise, great. All of the things that we talk about when we talk about exercising, amazing, right? So flexibility, increased oxygen carrying capacity. You're out in the fresh air. You are working on strength training. You're building muscles. You are increasing your metabolic, your basal metabolic rate. All of those things are very, very important. But the biggest bang that you get in terms of managing diabetes, in terms of reversing diabetes, will come from the diet. And so tonight we want to spend some time talking about the diet. We want to talk about those things that we do, and how do we go about mastering our plate, right? Because the plate is so important. It's important for our weight. It's important for our blood sugar. It is important for all of the other metabolic diseases that we talk about. And in fact, I said maybe yesterday or one of my check-ins that that diabetes is the ultimate prototypic metabolic disease, because it incorporates, or it has components of pretty much everything that you can talk about when you talk about metabolic disease. And we're going to spend some time talking about that. Before we get there, though, I want to go ahead and let's take a look at some numbers. And you'll see right there on the screen that right now my blood sugar is 82 according to my Libre. And I do have my meters over here. And Teresa, go ahead and if you're still able to hear me, go ahead and say yes. Because I made a change here. I want to make sure that I did not do something something that I shouldn't do. So if you can hear me, go ahead and say yes. Okay. And thank you guys for coming through. I'm going to go ahead and pop into the chat a couple of the playlists that we have. The playlist for reversing diabetes, and of course the one for how to fast successfully. All right, awesome. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look. So my Libre that's on the screen says blood sugar of 81, and then my Dexcom blood sugar of 105. I've got my monitors. Thank you, Teresa. And so let's go ahead and grab a test strip for glucose and for ketones, and I'll grab one of these trusty Lancets. And let's take a look to see where I am. And as of 7 o'clock, 7 o'clock tonight, I am actually fasting. I'm at 24 hours right now, okay? And if you come back tomorrow, you'll hear an official check-in as we get into the rest of the week as we go through the fasting process, okay? Tonight, we just want to take a look to see where we are. All right, and then here's my Lancet. So let's go ahead and get that out of there, and we'll get a finger poke. Hopefully we got a good drop of blood. I think it's good enough, but I don't think I pressed hard enough, but that's okay. So we got a Keto Mojo. We've got the contour going. So Keto Mojo says 86. The contour says 98. And you'll recall that the Libre says 81. So 81, 86, 96, and then 106. And then what do you think my ketones are going to be, right? So officially now, 24 hours and 13 minutes. Let's go ahead and get that strip in there and get a drop of blood. Okay. And then we'll come back to take a look at that here in just a moment. All right, so let's hop over and let's get into our discussion, because we are talking about mastering. We're talking about mastering the plate. Mastering the plate. A deep dive. And in order to have this discussion, really, I want to talk to you about the pillars of reversing diabetes. And I shared, if you saw our pop-up check-in this morning, pop-up live this morning, I shared with you that we are putting together a graphic for the pillars, and I've got two of them here that we'll share with you right now. As part of the discussion, everything hinges on the pillars, right? So pillars to reverse diabetes, and there are three: decrease insulin, suppress the appetite, and reduce sugar. Those are the three pillars. And everything revolves around them. I've got another graphic that I'm going to pop up here, right? So if you want to be success at reversing your diabetes, those are the pillars: decrease insulin, suppress appetite, and reduce sugar. That's it right there. And so we're going to talk about those. Now, here's the thing about the pillars. There are a lot of things that we can do to suppress appetite, to decrease insulin, and to reduce sugar. But you will see as we go through the conversation tonight, the things that we are focusing on are the things on the plate. And you will see that this theme will run throughout all of them. We'll come back later on and we'll take each one of these, right? Decreasing insulin, suppressing appetite, reducing sugar, and we will go into depth into all of them. Tonight, I want to do an overview as we talk about mastering this plate, because the plate is huge. The plate is huge. And I think I mentioned a couple of weeks ago this concept of food as medicine. Food as medicine. Much of what we can do, much of the changes that we can make, much of the improvement that happens in our health happens specifically as it relates to food. Okay, so pillars, reversing the pillars for reversing diabetes: decrease insulin, suppress appetite, and reduce sugar. So let's talk a little bit about decreasing insulin. All right, and so to get more into that conversation, let's talk a little bit about insulin. So insulin is an amazing hormone. Insulin is an amazing hormone. And traditionally, when we've talked about blood sugar and when we've talked about weight and we've talked about metabolic disease, as I mentioned several weeks ago, we have used this calorie in, calorie out model. That is, whatever you eat versus what you minus what you burn is what your weight ends up being. And as we talk about blood sugars, if we eat too much, if we don't get rid of it, then the blood sugar goes up. That's been the theory. That's been the concept. That's been an amazing tool that we've used, and it has served us well. But I think we've got to make some changes. Because not only are there calories that are attached to the food that we eat, but this new concept of the hormonal changes that go on in the body is very important. Here's an example. If I take a young woman and I weigh her, if she gets pregnant and I weigh her a couple of days later, as a matter of fact, if I weigh her the next day, her weight has gone up. This is assuming that she's not sitting at the table and just kind of shoveling food in, right? So the question is that I'm asking, and that you should be asking, and the question that is posed is, if she has not changed the calories that she's taking in, why has her weight gone up? right? We're assuming everything else is equal, right? So it's not that all of a sudden overnight she's just sat down and she starts shoveling food. One day she's sitting at a particular weight and she conceives. And if I weigh her the next day or the next day, her weight has gone up without changing what we're eating. And the reason for that is that there are hormonal changes. There are changes that go on in the body. If I take a woman who is premenopausal and I weigh her, and somehow magically I were able to turn a switch and she becomes postmenopausal the next day, her weight will change. Not because of food, but because of hormonal changes in the body. I have patients that I see who have what we call Cushing's disease or Cushing's syndrome, or people that are being put on steroids, which is a hormone. And if I take those people who are Cushingoid, and there's a certain feature that they look, how they look. If I take that person and I compare them without them having changed anything that they're eating, without them changing the type of food they're eating, without them changing their diet, without them changing their exercising, without them changing their sleeping pattern, without them changing their stress, if I compare that person prior to getting this disease to the person after the disease, their weight has gone up. What has changed? Hormones. And so our understanding of hormones and the part that it plays is huge, particularly as it comes to metabolic diseases, particularly as it comes to diabetes and our reversing diabetes. So you got to understand that. In the office today, actually, I spent several times talking to people about this. So insulin is a amazing hormone that does its job in the body. Everybody demonizes insulin. There's nothing wrong with insulin. If you didn't have insulin, then life would not be going well. So insulin does its job. The problem is not the insulin at its normal level. The problem is insulin as an elevated value or in an elevated way. It's kind of like having a car. And I give the example of me being in New York, or when we lived in Ohio, or even when I lived in Chicago, and coming out in the morning and trying to start the car, and the car would not start, right? You get that sound? And if I pump the gas a couple of times, it put some gas into the carburetor and boom, the car started up. But if I pump the gas one too many times, then the carburetor would get flooded. Now notice, I needed the gas to get the car going, but too much gas was not good. The same thing with insulin, same thing with sugar. I need enough for the body to function, but too much is not good. And so when insulin is elevated, insulin has a myriad of things that it does. One is it lowers blood sugar. Great, we love that. But insulin is also a storage hormone, and insulin is also an appetite stimulant. And then insulin can affect our hunger hormones, ghrelin and leptin. So those are some other hormones. Okay? So our very first pillar is to suppress insulin. That's the reason we want to lower insulin. And this is insulin that you take from outside. That is insulin that you're taking as a medication, or insulin that your body's making that is endogenous. So from outside is exogenous, ex outside, and endogenous, meaning inside, from inside. So we want to decrease the insulin that's coming from either place. And in order to do that, there are some things that we can do. The top of the list is watching the carbohydrates that we take in. Now, which comes first, the chicken or the egg? And I can see you. I can hear you. I can see you saying that right now. Well, wait a minute, Dr. Woode. If I am eating and that's causing the elevated insulin, and that's causing me to have an appetite that's ravenous, how do I break that if the insulin is already causing the issue? And we're going to come to talk about that here in just a minute, because you'll see it in the next list or the next point. Okay, so decreasing the carbohydrates, because when carbohydrates come out, we get a spike in blood sugar. When we get a spike in blood sugar, insulin is required. Either you've got to make some, or you've got to take some. Either you're making it in the body or you're taking some from outside. So even, I want you to listen to this. Even if your blood sugars are great, like I had someone today whose average blood sugar, I think, was 135 or one something. And every time he ate, the blood sugar spiked up to 160, 170. And they came back down 3-4 hours later. They're back down into the target range. But that spike that we get causes insulin to come out. And when insulin comes out, insulin does all the things that we just talked about. That is the storage, the appetite stimulation, right? Shuttling fat around the body. Because what happens is once the liver gets full with glycogen, because it stores about 100 grams of glycogen. Once it's full, then any additional sugar that comes into the body, any additional carbs, can't go there. It has to go somewhere else. And so the insulin, the liver, packages it up, and then begins to shuttle it into the rest of the body. And that's called cholesterol. Yeah, called cholesterol. When insulin is elevated, insulin will decrease the ability of our blood vessels to contract. In other words, they get stiff. And it's almost now like taking a hose and running water through the hose, and then taking your finger and putting it slightly over the spout. What happens? The water starts to move faster. The water pressure goes up. That's called hypertension or high blood sugar. High blood pressure. So notice what just happened. When insulin is elevated, insulin makes us put on weight because it shuttles the stuff to storage. Insulin stimulates our appetite because it affects our hunger hormones, ghrelin and leptin. Insulin makes our blood vessels stiffer, so now my blood pressure goes up, right? You start to see the cascade. So mastering the plate by watching the carbohydrates decreases the insulin level, and decreasing the insulin level is one of the pillars that we just talked about. Okay, number 1, reduce the carbohydrate intake. Number 2, practice fasting. Because you said to me, hey, if my appetite is being stimulated because I'm eating the carbs, and the carbs are causing the insulin to come out, and the insulin is stimulating my appetite, how do I break the cycle? You break the cycle by practicing fasting. And you'll see that fasting actually hits all of the pillars here in just a minute. So practice fasting. Now, I'll tell you, those first 8 hours when you're fasting, when you start fasting after you've eaten, those first, I shouldn't say 8, maybe 6 hours, those are going to be the places where people have the most issues. Why do they have the most issues there? They have the most issues there because of our heat model, because of habit. We are used to eating frequently we are used to eating at different cues. We're used to eating from social situations and these patterns that we've gotten into. Now I'll tell you, when if you remember seeing one of my graphs for my blood sugars, and not my blood sugar, but for my weight, when I was 260 pounds, 280 pounds, almost 290 pounds, there is no way that anyone could have looked at me and said, hey, he hasn't eaten for 12 hours. He must be hungry. It's not possible because my body had enough stores to be able to take energy from the stores and to convert it so that I can have energy. In fact, even now, and let me see if I can pull this up here really quickly. Even now, as we look at my, where is it? Here we go. Let me pull this up. Even now, as you look at my, weight. So this back here, I think that was, yeah, that was. Let's look at this one. Trends. So that one was, I think it's showing me. Oh, I don't want body fat. I want this one. Yeah, there we go. So right here at 260 pounds. Okay. And then even now, as we're down here, you will see that that based on my height and based on my current weight, I have enough energy, right? Not quite as much as I had before, yay. I have enough energy stored up that the body can readily take fat cells and convert them to energy. So in the fasting, those first few hours, those first 4, 5, 6 hours are where the social cues come in, where the patterns come in, where the habits come in. And that will take really kind of getting through that. And we've talked about that on our show. We've done check-ins about that. About how to successfully fast, how to distract yourself, remaining hydrated, make sure you're rested, and all the things that we talk about. But implement fasting, because when you do that, that breaks the cycle. Remember, we're talking about how to master the plate. How to master the plate. Number one, we're decreasing on insulin. How do we decrease insulin? We decrease the carbohydrates. How do we break the cycle? We introduce fasting. Right? So see the progression there? And then the third component of decreasing insulin is to add exercise, incorporate exercise. Now, here is a great place that exercise fits. When I'm normally talking to patients who, particularly people who we're talking about losing weight and becoming metabolically active, I usually don't have them exercise at the beginning. But here is a great place where exercise comes in, because one of the benefits of exercise is that exercise will help you to be more insulin sensitive. It will improve your insulin sensitivity. And what does that mean? That means that if your body makes 5 units or 2 units or 10 units, whatever the number the body makes, it makes that insulin work more effectively. That is, if your body's making the insulin. If you're taking insulin from outside, exogenous insulin, it makes that insulin work better. So we've decreased the carbohydrates. As a result, insulin doesn't have to spike. We have incorporated or introduced, or we're practicing fasting. By doing that, that also decreases the insulin. And now we've added exercise, and that causes our body to become more insulin sensitive, so we don't have to take as much insulin. So pillar number one is decrease insulin. Because if we can decrease insulin, all the things that go along with insulin improve. Pillar number 2 is to suppress the appetite. Suppress the appetite. Now, here is a place for us to talk about suppressing the appetite and what that means. Most of us, if our appetite wasn't stimulated, could go without eating. And when I say go without eating, I'm not even talking about fasting right now. I'm talking about just regular, in your regular day. Right? In fact, for many of us, we go through the entire day without eating because we're busy. Right? We've got that project we're working on. We've got that thing that we've got to go do. We've got the shopping that we need to do this evening. We got the folks who are coming over, so we've got to go get some food. We got to clean the house. All of those things are happening. And usually, we're not thinking about food. But the moment we become not as busy, things start to slow down. Right? The fatigue sets in. Now there's a little bit more stress because you've gotten all the supplies and you get to the house and you realize, okay, they're coming tomorrow, or Thanksgiving is tomorrow, or the party is tomorrow, or something happens, and immediately the emotions come up and the emotions begin to stimulate the appetite. So were it not for the appetite, most of us would be able to get through and be successful at improving our metabolic health. In fact, I was talking to a patient client of ours years ago who's had some very good success. You can go actually to our website, Dwain Woode MD, and you can actually read the comment that she says there. And because we were talking about losing weight. And she said to me, and this is what she said in the quote. She said, I said to Dr. Woode, if you can suppress my appetite, then I'll lose weight. And for many of you, that's what you're saying. It's like, yeah, I would have great blood sugars. I wouldn't have high blood pressure. I would not have a weight problem if I could control my appetite. And so where does the appetite come from? Where does the appetite come from? The appetite is that thing that's given by a lot of the heat model. Remember, we are sad, we're depressed, we're tired, we're fatigued, we're bored. Now here's one that most people don't think about. We often think about those negative emotions as the triggers for pushing through our desire to be healthy in terms of our food. Remember what we're talking about mastering the plate. We always think about those negative emotions: depression, anxiety, frustration, fear, right, on and on and on. But here's one, or here's an idea. It is not that those emotions are happening that poses the problem. It is that we have not learned effective emotional management. Ooh, whoa. I gotta come up and look at this one, right? So it's not that we have the emotion that's the problem. Because we all have emotions. We all get angry. We all get frustrated. We all get tired. We all feel bored. But it's that we've not learned to manage those emotions. Let me give you an example. I remember being with my family, being with my friends, and having a great time. We went out to dinner, we may have gone to somebody's house, we went to a game, we went to see a movie, whatever it was, and coming home and just being so full of joy, being so happy, just having been around people, right? that I came home and I sat and I ate a quart of ice cream, or I made that sandwich, or I had the chocolate, or I had the cake, or I had the cookies, and I have the bottle of juice. Not because I was angry or tired or bored, but because I was happy. And many of us, the emotions, the intensity of the emotions, we're not able to function. We're not able to manage the emotions. The other thing is, the other side of that coin is that not only do we use food or the plate to buffer the emotions, and that's what that's called, right? So you feel an emotion and you don't want to feel it, so you buffer it, right? So you do something else. But we also use the plate to avoid the emotion. Like, there are people who tell me all the time, and they say, no, my life is great. I'm not depressed. I'm not angry. I'm not frustrated. I'm not, and they go through the whole list of all the emotions. And I need to get a sheet up here with emotion words, right? And they're going through and say, yeah, that's not where it's going on with me. But the question then comes, if that's the case, and there's not a medical reason, why do we eat? We eat because we also use food. We also use the plate. Remember what we're talking about? We're talking about mastering the plate. We also use the plate to avoid the emotion, not just to stop the emotion, not just I'm feeling it, so I want to change it, but I don't want to feel it at all. And so I'm going to buffer. Okay? So suppress the appetite. So how do we suppress the appetite? We suppress the appetite by making changes in the foods that we eat. One of the reasons that we often don't succeed is not because we don't want to succeed. We don't succeed often because we don't have a plan. We don't have a structure. Often I'll say to people in the office, or I say to a client, hey, what is your plan? And you may identify with this. What is your plan for successfully getting through this holiday? And you know what the plan is usually? Oh, I'm just not going to eat this stuff. Mm-hmm. Or I'm going to make a decision, or I've got to decide not to do it. Well, it's kind of like me right now saying, well, I decided that I want $1 million. Oops, guess what? $1 million didn't just drop out of the sky. I have to have a plan. If I want that $1 million, I need to have a plan on how I'm getting that $1 million. So if we want to be successful, we got to have a plan. And part of the plan is to plan the things that we are going to use, in this case, to suppress the appetite. Number one, high fiber foods. Right? Remember, we're talking about mastering the plate. Because ultimately, mastering the plate helps us New Year, New You, right? So that's where this is all hitting. New Year, New You, but mastering the plate. So mastering the plate means that on the plate, in the foods that we're eating, high fiber foods. That goes to say, then, that the foods that we are eating are not as refined as the ones we currently eat, or the foods that we will eat are not as refined. Because when we talk about fiber, we're talking about, remember that idea of whole foods? So things that have a lot of fiber blunt the absorption of sugar. And when it blunts the absorption of sugar, first of all, we don't have the spike in insulin. Because we don't have the spike in insulin, then insulin doesn't mess up our ghrelin and our leptin, which is our satiety and hunger hormones, and our appetite is not as ravenous because we've had fiber. And there's a whole list of foods that we've talked about, and we may come back and do that again. So number one, include fiber. Have fiber in your meals. Change your meals. add some fiber in there. Don't say, okay, it's going to happen. No, you have to plan that in the meal, I'm going to have something that has fiber. Number 2, protein-rich foods. Protein-rich foods. Once again, getting to this idea of minimizing the processing. Protein-rich foods. Because that protein, along with the fiber, will blunt the absorption of the carbohydrates, of the sugar. If we do that, then we decrease the insulin. And once again, the insulin is that switch that stimulates the appetite. And then number 3, healthy fats. So here's an interesting, in the old day, they used to say, hey, I'm going to have a snack at night. It's cookies and milk and cookies. Well, there actually is some science to that, because if you take carbs and fat and you eat them together, then you don't get as big a rise in your blood sugar level. Yeah. So and you get a delayed response, actually. All right, so you don't get the biggest rise and you get a delayed response. It's kind of like eating pizza. Dough, carbs, cheese, fat. When you eat those together, then your blood sugar will go up, but it doesn't go up right away. It kind of goes like this, right? So gradually comes up. It's kind of like, for some people, ice cream. Sugar, and fat, milk. Put them together, you don't get as big a strike. Now, the issue with ice cream is that the sugar that's in there is so fine that as soon as it goes into your mouth, as soon as it gets into your mouth, then all of a sudden it absorbs and the blood sugar goes up. Right. So those foods that don't have that highly processed or ultra processed processing, then they don't cause as big a spike. So number 1, fiber. Add fiber to your meals. Number 2, protein-rich foods. And number 3, healthy fats. Pillar number 2. So number 1, decrease insulin. Number 2, suppress the appetite. And then our third pillar for reversing diabetes, and our third pillar really for mastering our plate, mastering the plate, is to reduce the sugar. Reduce the sugar. Yeah. And notice, again, on that list, whole foods. Prioritize whole foods. Because when we're prioritizing whole foods, we know that the processing of it has not stripped out the fiber. It hasn't ground those molecules so finely that as soon as it touches my lips or my tongue, that automatically I get absorption. It hasn't bleached out. It hasn't crushed out. It hasn't boiled out the vitamins and minerals. Right? So prioritize whole foods. Avoid added sugar. One of the shows that I have on my list for us to do is for us to do a show where we're talking about looking at labels. In fact, on my website, I have a course. It's called Sugar Busters. I think we really recently rebranded it or renamed it. Called Sugar Busters, but it walks you through the where sugars are, the hidden names for sugars, how to read them in, how to read a label. That's very important because sometimes they can be it can be tricky. Right? So avoid added sugar. Now, let me pause here and let me say, for any of you who are watching right now, and you're thinking to yourself, man, that means I can't ever have whatever again. And I want you to know that's not what I'm saying. In fact, you will never hear me say to you that there's something you can't eat. Yeah, I tell my patients that all the time. I'm not the food police. What I will say is that you've got to have a plan for what you're going to eat. That is, you can't just eat a gallon of ice cream and assume everything's going to be okay. Now, should you eat a gallon of ice cream? I don't know. Maybe that's a lot of ice cream. But if you have a plan for the ice cream, the gallon of ice cream, what is it? Right? And so I'm not telling you, as we're talking about avoiding added sugar, this is not to say you can never eat a thing that you like. Because I think that's where we fall down often, because we force people into these boxes where they can't ever. Like I have people say, I'm never going to eat bread again. Well, wow. Never? Well, I'm never going to drink juice again. Ever? Like from now on? And so we set ourselves up for failure often with those absolutes. Okay? But what you want to do is you want to make sure that you are mindful, right? So avoid added sugar. And then look at that. Practice mindful eating. So we're talking about mastering the plate, right? Pillar number 3, which is to reduce sugar, right? Number 1, prioritize whole foods. Number 2, avoid added sugar, because sometimes they'll add sugar to whole foods. And then number 3, practice mindful eating. What does mindful eating mean? Mindful eating says that I am present right now in this space right now as I'm eating. I'm feeling the emotions that I'm feeling right now. I'm not trying to buffer. I'm not trying to use the food for it. I'm enjoying the food, the texture, the flavor. I'm enjoying the experience of eating right now. I'm enjoying the environment. I'm enjoying being with my family. Mindful eating. And if you are able to do that in that process, that reduces sugar. And it allows us to master that plate that's in front of us. So how do we master the plate? How do we master the plate? We do the same things that we talk about when we're talking about reversing diabetes, because that's the ultimate metabolic disease, y'all. We decrease insulin. We suppress the appetite. And we reduce sugar. Because if we do that, then we are successful at mastering the plate. And ultimately, that's where we want to be. Mastering that plate. Awesome. Just a couple more things. So there are several diets that people can use in the process of adjusting the types of things they're eating. And I've really just have 3 that I've put together. Now, let me say that all diets work. All diets will work if they fit into your schedule, into your calendar, right? So I've just picked 3 of the ones that I think can couple easily. Remember when we talked about pillar number 1, one of the things was incorporate fasting, practice fasting, right? Well, what do you do on your non-fasting days? Right? So if I'm fasting today, what do I do tomorrow? And so these are 3. So low carb diet. So the principle with low carb diets is you reduce carbohydrates, you reduce the intake to minimize blood sugar spikes. And if we're minimizing blood sugar spikes, look at this, it decreases the insulin spike. Right? So that's a benefit, right? That's one of the things. Common foods, meats, fish, egg, low carb vegetables, nuts, seeds. Benefits is that it can reduce blood sugar, right? So we don't get that spike. It promotes weight loss, and it improves insulin sensitivity. Because if you're not putting in that big load of carbohydrates, then the insulin that you have on board works better, because there's not a big burst or big spike in sugar. So the insulin that you have works better. One of the challenges is that it can feel restrictive. And that's what we're just talking about. For people who are not allowing themselves to be flexible, it can be very, very restrictive, and people may not end up staying on it because they feel that they're being right. Everything is being controlled and suppressed. And I've said to you, and maybe I've said it, and you may not. Maybe you've heard it, you may not have paid attention to it, but that's okay. I'm gonna say it again. This process and the fasting that we do, and New Year, New You, and all the things that we learn is both physical, emotional, and mental. I shouldn't say both, but all three: physical, emotional, and mental. And so it starts here. That's why the very first show that we did at the beginning of the year was to figure out your why. Because the why drives us. Right? That's a whole nother conversation. All right. So the next diet is the Mediterranean diet. A lot of people out there are doing this, and now we're talking about, okay, what other things can you couple as we're talking about changing that plate, maximizing the plate, mastering the plate. We already talked about minimizing insulin. We talked about suppressing the appetite. We talked about reducing sugar. But here are some things that you can use, right? So in this instance, we focus on whole foods. Here you go. There's that word. Healthy fats and moderate proteins. It emphasizes fruits, vegetables, whole grains, nuts, seeds. All right, and you'll see some of the common foods there. Benefits: it improves cardiovascular health. It's one of the ones that people push to improve cardiovascular health. Now, why does it improve cardiovascular health? Because it improves metabolic disease, because, right, it's a metabolic syndrome. It's a metabolic disease. It reduces inflammation. Yay, right? Because remember, all of these processes are inflammatory. It is sustainable and easy to adhere to for long term. So because you're not really restricting, well, let me say you are restricting some things, but people tend to do better with this than they do with something like a low carb. Challenges, right? It may require more meal preparation and cooking, and it can be higher in calories. So some people who are doing Mediterranean diet, sometimes they will have higher cholesterol. But there's another conversation to have about cholesterol. Because remember, not only does the fat in your food affect cholesterol, but the carbs will affect cholesterol as well. And then the plant-based diet, right? It emphasizes whole plant-based foods. Whole foods, there it is. Whole plant-based food. Minimizes or eliminates plant products or animal products. All right, we're talking about vegetables, fruits, whole grains, legumes, nuts, seeds. Now, I'll make a comment here for you, and you may have already realized this, that sometimes it can be a little challenging to manage sugars as a plant-based person, right? Because everything you're eating has carbohydrates. And so you're going to have to be mindful, be careful as you're putting your meals together, right? To be intentional about not having a lot of starchy vegetables or the fruits that are high glycemic index. Right? So berries, non-starchy vegetables are the ones that don't spike the sugars and so forth, okay? So not that it cannot be done. That's not what I'm saying. But you're going to have to be mindful and be careful as you're putting your meals together. Benefits: improve blood sugar control and insulin sensitivity. There it is right there. Right? So decrease insulin. It's high in fiber and antioxidants. So fiber, once again, one of those things to suppress the appetite and blunt the sugar spike. It promotes weight loss and reduces risk of chronic diseases. What chronic diseases? All the ones that we've been talking about. Polycystic ovarian syndrome, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. All right, so there they are right there. Hyperlipidemia, coronary artery disease, obesity, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, metabolic syndrome. All of those things get better as a result of dealing with metabolic diseases. Yep. So plant-based, plant-based diet. Let's see. What are some challenges? It may require more meal prep, right, and cooking because you can't just grab something off the shelf. And it can be higher in calories depending on how you're doing. And this one is actually if you're not paying attention to portion sizes. Now, I'll tell you one of the things I struggle with is that sometimes I'll see something that is healthy, and you guys know this if you've been watching me for any time. You know that I love nuts, I love almonds, I love cashews. I just bought a from Sam's, one of those big thing of mixed nuts, and I thought this was going to be my solution, right? Because I wasn't going to eat because it has almonds and walnuts and all this other stuff, macadamias in there. I even got some pistachios and mixed them up in there. So I thought I wasn't going to eat a lot of it, but guess what? A nut is a nut is a nut for me, right? So what I tend to say in my brain will say, hey, that's a healthy food, so you can probably eat more. And so the portion sizes can get out of control if we're not careful. If we're not careful with that. And so make sure that you are doing that. All right. So let's hop over again, and I want to take a look at my meter because we're going to look at my ketones. Remember, I am over 24-hour fasting, actually just about to reach 25 hours. And I think Teresa says that she thinks my ketones are going to be 0.6. I'm not sure if it's going to be quite there yet, Teresa. All right, so let's hop over. So here's my meter, and I need to get my Keto Mojo, which is this guy right here. Get that strip out, and we'll see that sync here in just a minute. Let's see, let's go ahead and hit the button to get it to sync. And you see it says scanning, and it'll pull all that information over here in just a minute. There we go. All right. And so 86 was the blood sugar, and 0.1 was the 0.1 are the ketones. And so remember that ketones that are less than 0.5 are considered normal. 0.5 to 1.5 is considered nutritional ketosis, and then above 1.5 is considered therapeutic ketosis. Okay, so right now I'm in normal, right? So I've been eating this weekend, and so I would expect here in another, and just at 24 hours, by the way, right? If you remember, if you've watched our check-ins, just at 24 hours is when the glycogen stores are depleting. So just as I was getting on the show, it's 24 hours, and so that's just when these things are going away. Okay, and so ketones less than 0.5 considered normal, 0.5 to 1.5 considered nutritional ketosis, and over 1.5 is considered therapeutic ketosis. All right. Let's see. So once again, if you have questions, go ahead and pop those in there. 1.6 is my ketone. So Steve, my man, Steve just popped in, and Steve says that his ketones right now are 1.6. All right, so Steve, you are. I'm assuming that you're doing a kind of a ketogenic diet, because I know you fast with us. And then you're kind of maintaining ketogenic. Is that what I'm hearing? Go ahead and pop that. If that's the case, you go ahead and pop those in there. Okay, awesome. All right. One of the features that we've added to the channel, if you have been kind of paying attention, is our This Week in Review, which comes out on Sunday morning. at 6 o'clock in the morning. So make sure that you get there and uh, pay attention to that, because that is not just, but that is a special feature that we've just added to the show, to the channel, that allows those of you who may have missed the live. We do a recap on those, and people have been commenting about how they've liked that, and so I'm excited about that as we move into the rest of the year. Okay, all right. And this is a great place for us to do our thought of the day. So let's go ahead and do that right now. All right. And our thought of the day is this: that motion is lotion for the body. Motion is lotion for the body. Movement is essential for maintaining health and vitality. Just as lotion nourishes and hydrates the skin, yeah, regular physical activity keeps our bodies flexible. It keeps us strong, and it keeps us functional, and it keeps us optimal. Embrace daily movement to enhance your well being and support your journey in recovering and reversing your diabetes. Remember, every step you take is a step towards a healthier, more vibrant you. Keep moving. But not only is motion physically lotion for the body, but motion in terms of our mentation, in terms of our education, in terms of our emotional being, motion is lotion for the body. We can become so stagnant. We can become so depressed. We can become so discouraged that we don't move. And when we don't move, then the body becomes stiff, the brain becomes stiff, the personality becomes stiff. We can become so stiff that it impacts the rest of our bodies, impacts our health. This is not just a single component, right? So it's not just that we're dealing with the physical. The physical, the mental, and the emotional, they are intertwined. When one is not functioning well, then it affects the entire system. And so just like we are moving physically, and one of our challenges has been to incorporate some exercise into your daily routine. Just like we are moving physically, just like we are trying to be healthy with our physical body, we want to be healthy also with our mental body, with our emotional body. We want to be in motion with our academic, with our professional bodies as well. There are some things that you want to do, some things that you've been planning to do, some things that you've been thinking about, dreaming about, that they're stagnant, they're on the shelf. And I want to encourage you right now, just as we are saying get up and get out and incorporate that activity physically, I want you to do the same thing mentally, emotionally, professionally, wherever you find yourself. Remember, motion is lotion for the body. And that is our thought for today. All right, everyone. Remember that when we talk about next steps, right? Mastering your plate is essential for reversing your diabetes. It is a huge driving force behind blood sugar. It is a huge driving force behind getting us metabolically healthy. You want to implement strategies, as we've talked about, to decrease your insulin, to suppress the appetite, and to reduce sugar. Those are the pillars of reversing diabetes. Decrease insulin, suppress appetite, and reduce sugar. This goes a long way in mastering that plate. And you want to make small changes. Small, incremental, right? Consistent changes. Those are the things that we do. Those are the ways that we have success. You're going to stumble. You're going to have some successes. You're going to have some starts and some stops. But that doesn't mean that you halt. Just like we said just a moment ago, motion is lotion for the body. You got to keep moving. You got to keep moving in the process of getting healthy. You have unlimited potential at your fingertips. You have unlimited ability to improve your health in your life. You have unlimited ability to reverse your diabetes. You have unlimited ability to be metabolically healthy. And that comes through education, through empowerment, and through encouragement. And we do that here on the show. That's the Triple E formula for success. We educate with the shows that we do, the blogs, the podcasts. We encourage or we empower with the tools that we learn. Just like tonight, we learned an amazing tool on how to master our plate. All those tools are with the intention of allowing you to have success as you move forward. And then we encourage with the community that you are part of, the community that comes on and shares their story. All right, success right now to Steve, who ketones 1.6. I'm so excited for that because he's continuing to maintain. He said that he is doing a ketogenic diet. Love it because he's maintaining ketosis. So the Triple E formula for success. We educate, we empower, and we encourage. And then here on the channel, we are talking about the HEAT model. Remember, we just mentioned some of it. So the habits that we form, these are the things that push us in a direction to break our fast, to not follow through on our plan in terms of our eating. The habits that we formed, the emotions that come through, the access that we have, things that are around us that throw us off, things that are in the environment that tempt us, and of course, our taste. Habits, emotions, access, and taste are the things that push us. And then our pillars for reversing diabetes: decrease insulin, suppress appetite, and reduce sugar. We'll come back, we'll talk more about those. But our call to action is this: join the challenges. Every month we have a challenge that we go through. And the challenges are with the intention of giving you an opportunity to implement the things that we're learning. Make sure that you join us. Go back on the channel, see what we've done as we've moved through those challenges. Our challenge for this month is to add some activity to your routine, right? Add an activity, add some exercise to your routine as we are working to, now notice, and I want to say that I'm not talking about calories, right? Calories, you are going to burn some calories. But what do we want exercise to do? We want the exercise to improve our insulin sensitivity. We want it to decrease our sugar, because if we do that, that decreases our insulin. When it decreases our sugar and we decreases our insulin, that suppresses our appetite. And then when it decreases our sugar, it reduces sugar. That's one of the pillars, right? So all three pillars are hit right there again with exercise. Fasting hits it and exercise hits it. So come on, join the challenges on the show. Like I said, we have one every month. And this month is to add some activity, add some exercise to your routine. Number 2, when you come on, tell your story. Claim your seat. Say, I'm here. Say, I'm fasting. Hey, I've lost some weight. Hey, my blood sugars are better. I'm off of this medication. Tell your story, because when you tell your story, other people hear that and they know that they can succeed as well. When they see places where you are challenged, then we can come around you and support you, and we know that we're not alone. That's what the community is about. And then invite someone into the space. In the month of May, one of the things that we asked you to do was to begin mentoring somebody in the New Year, New You process. Teach them, train them, work with them. Not just tell them and then go away and come back 5 months later, but say to someone, hey, let's do this together. Say to a mother, a brother, a sister, cousin, auntie, and them, hey, let's do this. I went to see my doctor this past Friday, and we sat in his office as we talked about New Year, New You. Right? He's a new physician to me. This is the second time I've seen him. My physician retired and he took over the practice. So I'm sitting there and I'm explaining to him, and he's looking at my labs and saying, what are you doing? What is giving you this benefit? And I'm sitting there and I'm teaching him, I'm talking to him about New Year, New You. You can be the voice of change in your environment, in your family, on your job, at your church, at your doctor's office, wherever you find yourself. There are over 1 billion people, that's billion with a B, who have diabetes or who are pre-diabetic. And you can be a voice for helping them change as well. Awesome, awesome. All right. So as I always say, I'm excited that you are here, excited to see you in this space, and excited for all the benefit that you are getting in your life and the successes that you're having. Make sure you let us know, drop us a message, drop us a line. For those of you who are out there, coming in the month of August is our 4-year anniversary for this channel. 4-year anniversary for Dwain Woode MD. If you have had some successes, I would love for you to videotape yourself, maybe 1 or 2 minutes telling your story about the changes that you've had. Send that in. We're going to air that on the anniversary day, right? It's coming up on August. We'll tell you it's going to be August 16th. But go ahead and send those in to me. We're right about a month now out from that date. So 4 years being here, 4 years being in this space with you, and I'm very, very excited. Well, we will come back and we will check in again starting tomorrow as we continue our fast. And we're right now a little over 25 hours and 14 minutes in this week's fast. As I always say, this is Dr. Dwain Woode. That's Wood with an E. The E stands for endocrinology. Here on the channel, I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health in your life, avoid complications, and go to the next level. And in this year, new you. So I'll see you tomorrow to check in. Sunday morning, 6 o'clock for This Week in Review. And then for our live show next week, Dwain Woode MD Live, right here at 7 p.m. Central. Good night, everybody.